Hello, everyone. My name is Vincent Petrie. I work at Forgestik as an IT sales consultant. I've been in the IT field for, a little over 25 years now. And today's topic is a hot topic. We could discuss this subject, for a long, long time. But my goal today is to kind of keep things simple and give you a heads up on what's going on right now regarding to cybersecurity. So that is the theme. The theme is cybersecurity challenges in 2023. Um, a quick note before we start. I have to say that the engineers who designed the internet a long time ago didn't take into consideration that at some point, a bunch of computers would be attacking, other computers. So it doesn't have security in mind in the design, more of a sharing platform. That is the main goal of internet sharing, having access to information. And to counter that, we've started using encryption, quite a few years ago, and we use encryption for everything. Even a regular website that you visit is, uses encryption today. So all the data on the internet needs to transit, in encrypted to keep it secure. It's a cat and mouse game between security experts and the bad guys. They're pretty good. They're pretty good actually. They have a good arsenal of tools, and so the security experts like me, we need to stay one step ahead of the curve all the time to be protected. A fun fact today, it's not a fun fact, it's bad news actually, is you don't need to be a programmer to be a hacker today. All these tools are already coded. They're available as a service. If you're a bad guy and if you want to, let's say, do a ransomware campaign or a phishing campaign, there's tools out there that are already custom designed, updated, maintained, that the bad guys can rent as a service. We saw in the early 2000 Windows zombie networks. It was Windows XP back then. So that was the first time we actually saw that cyber criminals were being very successful at stealing money. They would actually infect your computer. You would be part of a botnet, and you'd be tricked into enter your banking credentials, and they would empty the account again. So that was in the early 2000s. Um, yeah, the bad news about ransomware, because we're going to talk about ransomware, which is in my opinion, the biggest threat for small and medium companies, even large companies. I'll have examples later on. Is that they no longer only encrypt the files, they steal the files, and that way it gives them double leverage for double ransom, double extortion, if we can call it that way. Um, every network is different, so it's always a challenge to fine tune the security features, that are adapted to your environment. There's work involved, and it's a continuous work. It needs to be revised quarterly, some at least twice a year to make sure that everything is kosher. A password is no longer secure. That's why we're starting to use MFA, biometrics, and PINs as passwords, as Microsoft does. We'll be talking about Microsoft 365 in detail in a minute. So biometry and MFA. Just to give you two quick examples of ransomware that happen, in Quebec. Our transit system in Montreal got attacked by a ransomware. They were affected for at least 2 or 3 weeks. I guess they decided to restore the backups, losing maybe a couple of days of work. But they had a hard time for a good 2 or 3 weeks. It's a large environment. There's also what we call affiliates. Affiliates are usually good at social engineering, but don't have any technical background. So they use the tools that are already out there to go ahead with their attack campaign. And there's this young man in Gatineau who got caught not long ago. They were able to trace everything back to his house. I think he had $350,000 in four currencies, and something like $3 million worth of Bitcoin. So, what motivates the bad guys? It's all about the money, and they're doing a lot of money with ransomware. So, a bit about myself. I'm a senior IT consultant working for IT sales right now. I've been working at Forgestik for 4 years. I've been focused on the latest, greatest cloud solutions and obviously cybersecurity defense mechanisms. Before that, I was an IT infrastructure specialist. I worked in medium, large environments. I worked in the financial sector shortly for a multinational company as an infrastructure specialist. So I've been in the business for at least 25 years. Right now, I'm a certified IT pro for Azure and Microsoft 365. We do a lot of Azure and a lot of Microsoft 365 with the focus on, securing the cloud environment. So yeah, like I said, my expertise right now is in public cloud, cybersecurity, defense strategies. What is ransomware? Well, ransomware is basically attackers usually it will infiltrate your network via a phishing scam. So it's going to be an email sent to someone that looks legitimate. They're going to click on the link. It's going to compromise the system, and from that point, everything goes slow at the beginning. Meaning that what the bad guys do now is they take a copy of all your data. First thing first, they infiltrate your network with one email compromising one account. Then they go lateral. What that means is they'll be able to crack more identities in your network, gaining access to all your files, your databases. So they'll be able to copy these files, then encrypt them, and ask for a ransom. So they'll ask for a ransom for the decryption key to give you access, to your backups. And, maybe a couple of weeks after that, they'll come back and ask money and say, listen, we have all your sensitive data. We're about to sell it to the highest bidder on the dark web. If you pay us another ransom, we'll delete your files. We've noted that when companies pay the ransom, it doesn't mean necessarily that they'll get all their files back. A good example, I had a client a new client who came to us who had been attacked by ransomware, and they were able to get back parts of the data, but not all of the data. And obviously, they had to pay for the ransom. Um, Before, we used to be able to restore the backups and lose one day of work, but be back online pretty quickly. But today, with the data exfiltration, that's a new challenge because these files, they have them. So maybe they can extort once or multiple times. So there's a lot of money to be lost, and some companies it affects them so hard that some companies go out of business. They destroy the backups now. They're getting better and better. Like I said at the beginning of the presentation, they destroy the backups. So, before we could always fall off to restoring last night's backup, but today it's not always the case. You're not always lucky. Yeah, I talked about SEM. Why are small? I'll go to the next slide. Quick ransomware history. It was first documented in 1989, but it first started to be used by cyber criminals in 2013 because of the Bitcoin. So it's easy to, do the attack and to get paid anonymously through the Bitcoin system, which is hard to trace. That gives the cyber criminals all the tools they needed to, go on large campaigns. It's been worse since 2017, but I'd like to say that I looked at the stats at the last 3 years, 2020, 2021, 22, and how are we doing in 2023? It seems to be stable, but there's still a large number of attacks. So like I said before, The best case scenario in a ransomware attack. What is the best case scenario if you're not if you don't have all the security measures in place and you get attacked, your systems are compromised? The best case scenario would be restore last night's backup if they're available, lose one day of work, take the hit, then enforce security policies. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, the backups are deleted or something like that. Then the only way to get back the data is by paying that ransom. That's why, and I'll talk about that a little later on. It's very important to have an offsite copy of your backups in read only. Okay, read only is very important. Nobody can delete those backups, not even a hacker, not even your systems administrator. It's protected. We call them immutable backups. Yeah, fun facts, you can rent a ransomware ready application, ready to launch attacks as a service. Phishing as a service platform lets cyber criminals generate convincing phishing pages. So basically, what they've done by region, identifying how the websites of the financial institutions are designed to mimic them. So basically, these I like to call them affiliates, don't have to have any technical background. They can use those tools to launch the attack, use the Bitcoin system to get paid anonymously. How it works: bad guys create the ransomware themselves or buy, lease it from other cyber criminals. Most of this code comes from Russia, a bit from China also. And what they like to do is they like to work with affiliates. So these cyber criminals on step two who use social engineering to gain access to your network, those are the affiliates. There's two types of affiliates. They can have a direct contact with the bad guys in Russia or wherever the software is located, or they can run a campaign on their own and just rent the software, carry on with their attack, get paid in Bitcoin from the victims and pay a certain fee to the bad guys who code the malware. So they'll get paid also. After that, they encrypt all your IT systems as possible. We're talking about file servers, database servers, systems can go down. Your Active Directory, which contains your users and computers, can be completely compromised. And then they ask for a ransom. So at some point, everybody's going to notice that nothing is usable over the network from their computer. They cannot open files anymore. They cannot open certain applications because the database is frozen. So at some point, everybody knows there's a message on screen with the instructions to pay the Bitcoin. In the bottom, in some cases, attackers will exfiltrate your data prior to encrypting your system. That is true. That is verified. That's exactly what happened to one of our new clients who decided to approach us after they got attacked by ransomware. So they had stolen their data also. They had encrypted all the files. They had deleted the backups. They had made for the Active Directory users to be unusable. It was a disaster. So basically, we worked 2 or 3 weeks on having a full cloud setup that includes security. I'll talk about that later. And so far so good. It's been a year, no more attacks. They're safe. They're happy, but they had to move. They had to move fast. Sometimes we have to move really fast. If there's little to none security measures that are taken on your network and you get attacked, we're going to try to restore the backups as soon as possible. Why are small businesses targeted? Why not target the big guys and ask for the big ransom? There's different grades of hackers out there. There's obviously elite, and there's the less experienced beginners. The less experienced beginners can take advantage of that software that is available on the dark web, and they can target small companies, example, who have little to none security measures in place. The backups are not necessarily tested, monitored, and your backup is like your last resort, basically. So most of the time, there's not enough time that's put into maintaining, making sure the backups are good. Obviously, if you're down for 2 weeks, you're going to lose money. And we've heard of companies that were down for 2, 3 weeks, and customers that were buying products from them decided to go elsewhere because you were offline for 3 weeks. So it could be a big hit. Here is where it gets complicated, and here is where um, everybody needs to get involved. Everybody needs to get up to par with cybersecurity. I'm going to talk about two things about cyber insurance and Quebec's Law 25. It's a new law. It's been, effective in 2022, and they want everybody to be compliant by mid 2024. But let's start with the cyber insurance. We've had multiple of our clients submit us some kind of a questionnaire from their insurance. They wanted to offer our clients cyber insurance, and we had a checklist. They had to use certain security measures in order to be insured. We've seen some customers that were not compliant, and the insurance companies decided not to offer them an insurance policy. And we've seen companies that had a price prior to being compliant and after being compliant, and the price dropped dramatically. So yeah, it's something that some companies are looking into getting that cyber insurance can protect a company in when a major attack scenario, basically. Okay, let's talk about Law 25 in details. Law 25 is a legislative act that aims to overhaul the privacy regime in Quebec. Um, I did a bit of research, and one of our cloud providers in our last annual Congress had a lawyer come and talk to us about Law 25. And where it gets complicated is, if you're not compliant, there's going to be fines. And there's, a few points that I want to discuss right now that are important. Basically, breach notification needs to be reported to Commission d'accès à l'information du Québec. So basically, if you've been victim of, an example, a ransomware, they've copied your data, they have a copy of your data, you have to notify this commission that you've been, compromised, that the information has been leaked. Not good for business. DPO, and it gets worse, a little lower. DPO appointment. So basically, and I had a couple of employees contact me about this already. Every company needs a designated employee, chosen by the company that is responsible for Law 25, basically being compliance because it's an ongoing process. So somebody in the company needs to be, responsible for that. An example, like for the 3 customers that contacted me, they're in continuous contact with me, and we're looking at their current infrastructure and finding solutions to be compliant and to protect ourselves for not having a breach first and protecting the sensitive information. There's going to be a privacy impact assessment needing to be done and submitted to the same committee at every major change, changing ERP software, new acquisition. These incidents, these events will need to be need to be documented in the privacy impact assessment. Privacy notices is basically if you're collecting information about your clients, sensitive information, they need to be informed. Yeah, they have the right to be informed, access, rectification, erasure, withdraw consent, restrict processes, so they have rights and they need to be noticed. And enhance consent. So basically, like I just said, they need to approve Also, if let's say data was leaked from your company, they have information on, let's say, your 500 clients, you got hacked, you need to contact these clients one by one or by email. They need to be notified that you were holding their sensitive information and it got leaked in an attack. So you have to proceed with that. If you do not comply and do not follow these procedures, from what we've heard from the lawyer at our presentation, there will be fines. So it's something, to look into. Security measures to be taken into consideration. This is just me being a senior IT consultant. My recommendations are based on me double checking with my peers, research, etc. What I've done for the past 25 years. I've done a lot of defensive security, so it's nothing new to me. It's something you know, you don't want to have a router that's a home router. You need an enterprise grade router. There's even models for small SMBs. So these intelligent firewalls not only act as firewalls, but have advanced security features. This came into the market maybe 15 years ago. So if you don't have one of those guys right now, that's the checkpoint. That's the in and out to your network. So a good equipment needs to be in place. But another thing to take into consideration is these boxes don't come perfectly configured to secure your environment because every environment is different. Every IT infrastructure has different needs, different applications, different configurations. The challenge in security is to be as secure as possible without affecting the production. So you need to get one of these boxes, but you need an IT pro to go ahead and enhance the security features, enhance the security of the parameter, apply changes to the firewall. So there's work to be done. Endpoint protection on devices. We used to call it antivirus. Antivirus is signature based. If the virus is not in the signature database, it'll bypass the antivirus. Today, there's a lot of zero-day exploit. Let me try to, make this clear on what this is. Zero-day exploit is basically uh, a vulnerability in a system that hasn't been fixed. It can be a known issue or unknown issue. Unknown issue meaning that, maybe it's hackers' secret that they have certain zero-day access to systems and nobody knows there's a vulnerability. So these guys can employ it. A good way to counter that is what we call endpoint protection, which is not signature based, but pattern based. So the antivirus will see what's going on. If your computer has been encrypting, hundreds of files in a short period of time, the pattern will be detected by the endpoint protection, and the connection and the service will be terminated. So we need next generation security endpoint and firewall, a must. A big challenge today is remote workers. They're working from home. They're no longer protected behind the corporate firewall. Well, we use a feature called always on VPN. Example, you have 5 laptops for 5 workers who work remotely. They work from home, they're on the road. Every time they open their laptop, the first thing that happens after they log in, they establish a connection to your corporate firewall. And all the traffic that's being, asked in and out from that device will go through the corporate firewall. So they will benefit of all the advanced security features. So that's one way to secure your remote workers. We're working a lot with cloud. Data is in the cloud now a lot. So we also need to secure the cloud environments, and I'll be getting more into details about that in a second. Obviously, systems need to be patched application on a monthly basis. A password is no longer secure, so multi-factor authentication and biometrics come in very handy. They will secure the connection by 99%. Okay. It's no system is 100% secure proof, But the security experts, we've noticed that multi-factor authentication with tokens that change every 30 seconds, combined with biometrics to open your phone, open your computer, are very reliable security measures. Disaster recovery plan. Let's say you have a few servers that are currently in one of your closets at the office. What happens if there's a fire? What's the disaster recovery plan? Where are you going to fail over to? So, and even the insurance companies are asking for that disaster recovery plan. Vulnerability scan and remediation. Basically, there's some tools with offensive security tools that will scan your network, generate a nice report with all the vulnerabilities, the critical ones, the medium ones, the low ones, and with an action plan to, fix those security holes. Yeah, exactly. Protection mechanisms need to be enforced to protect data in the cloud. And I'm going to talk about, how advanced security features in Microsoft 365 address this. I'm pretty sure if there's 300 employee or less at your company, you're using the Microsoft business line of licenses. So let me just go quickly through what are the different business licenses that are offered. You have the cloud services that come with the basic license. I always say that because it's very important. No longer, you have a space for your emails, but you also have space in OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams. Basically, anybody with a business license and above has 1 terabyte of personal space in their OneDrive, and there is 1.3 terabytes of shared space for your shared files that are on your server right now, usually in drive letters in your Windows Explorer, where, well, instead of hosting those files on a local file servers, now we migrate those files to OneDrive and SharePoint in the cloud. The business standard, the only addition is you have the actual Office 365 client that is installed. You have the right to install it on 5 computers and use it. We work with Business Premium because of the advanced security features. So we have managed IT customers, and that is the license we use. And I'm going to tell you why right now. Everybody who has a license in Microsoft 365, every single user is going to have a user identity created in the cloud in what we call Azure Active Directory. So what these advanced security features will give you is we'll be able to refine how we let people access your data. We will use certain security policies to make sure, example, the person that's accessing your cloud data has a company-owned device that's up to date and will provide multi-factor authentication. That's an example of what security features we can use to add layers of security to your cloud environment. For those who use Azure, in Azure, we usually connect to Azure Virtual Desktops. The license is, I think, around $9. When you have a business premium, that license is included. Azure Information Protection, I've been talking about the sensitive data that you have stored somewhere on your file server that only 1 or 2 person has access to. Well, with the advanced security features, what we can do is we can encrypt, protect these files, and make sure they never leave your company without consent, okay, to prevent data leaks. Intune is a wonderful tool to manage devices and to push and deploy security policies. So basically, this is what we're going for our managed service clients. And what's new, and there's a full endpoint defender for business that's included in a Microsoft 365 license. So basically, you don't have to buy additional endpoint security solution. It's embedded in the Microsoft 365 business license. MFA, what is MFA? So basically, I will log in to my Outlook today, and it's asking me to authenticate myself. I will provide my email address and my password. and then I will be prompted for multi-factor authentication. And we like to use the multi-factor authentication application on the mobile devices. It works really good. So I get a notice on my phone. I open my phone. I go into the application where it stores the information about multi-factor authentication. The application before launching itself will do a face scan to make sure it's me. And then inside, I'll have tokens, 6 numbers that change every 30 seconds that I will need to provide in my login information in order to have access to my emails. Okay. So multi-factor authentication is a good step forward in cybersecurity. Because these password hashes can be cracked very easily these days because the supercomputers are getting faster and faster, obviously. But with two-factor authentication, you've entered your credentials, but the phone made sure it was you opening the application and you had to supply a code in order to have access to your data. So like it says in the slide, it'll block 95% of attacks. It's a big layer of security. Um, there's Microsoft Defender for 365 that comes with the business premium license. What that does is it'll secure the files in your OneDrive, in your SharePoint, in your Teams, and it will protect your email system. There's three features that I want to talk about for the email system protection. Safe link. They call it safe attachment. Basically, when the bad guys send you a phishing email, there's always a link in the email that they want you to click. So what this will do is it will take the link in a sandbox, isolated sandbox. It's going to execute the link and analyze. AI is going to analyze what happens. Is there cross-site scripting involved? What does that mean? It means that the malicious link sends you to a genuine website, but in the background redirects you to, a bad intention website. Okay, cross-site scripting. So everything is transparent to the user. The user thinks it's consulting a legitimate site, but in the background, cross-site scripting, the bad guys are trying to hack into your computer. So there's safe link that'll test the links in a sandbox. Same thing for attachments for malware. There's a detonation chamber. So basically, the email will be sent to the user, but the file will be there but unavailable with a message saying that it's being tested. The attachment will be launched in the sandbox, and like for the safe link, it will analyze what's going on. What is the program doing? Is it a malware? Does it have bad intentions? And if so, it will, block access to that file. They have advanced phishing features because we know that's how, the bad guys infiltrate your networks is through email phishing scams. So that adds considerable security to your mail system. We had customers who used Microsoft Exchange Online for emails, but used a third-party solution for anti-spam. But with Business Premium, you don't need to. You have the service out of the box. I was talking about conditional access policies not long ago. I'll give an example of a conditional access policy. In order to have your data in the cloud, your emails, your files on SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, etc. Your computer needs to be this is an example of a policy. Your computer needs to be joined to the company's Microsoft 365 account. It needs to be compliant. Antivirus needs to be up to date. The versions of Windows need to be up to date. Microsoft Defender needs to be activated with certain settings. I will require multi-factor authentication, and I will require that you are located in Canada or the USA only. Any other connection, example, a hacker in China with his own computer, you're not in Canada, you're not in the US, you don't have a compliant device, and you don't have my multi-factor authentication information, so you will not access the system. Okay. So these conditional access policies, very powerful, secure tool to protect your cloud information. Microsoft Information Protection. Data loss prevention, insider risk management. We can protect from data, your sensitive data being leaked outside your organization. We will use Microsoft Information Protection to identify sensitive data. We will create a security label named sensitive data. We will affect that label to sensitive files, give only access to one or two person in the organization to those files who needs it for their everyday work. And we will block it from being sent out via OneDrive shares, via SharePoint, or via email. And let's say it was authorized to be sent outside to the company. Besides the person you are sending the information to who has legitimate access to the information, he will be able to open the file. Anybody else who intercepts the communication with the file will open the file. It would be encrypted. It will be unreadable. Okay. And like I said, we have Defender, Microsoft Defender. You can install it on your computers. It's a full-fledged endpoint security solution. You can install it on servers. It's integrated into most of cloud services in Microsoft 365. Finally, Microsoft Intune, another feature that comes with Office 365. It'll give you a platform to manage your devices. You can manage updates. You can manage application deployment, application updates, system updates, security profiles, manage computers, tablets, cell phones, Android, iOS, Windows, and Linux and Mac is in process. They're working on it. They'll be integrated also. An example of what I would like, how I would use Microsoft Intune for the cell phones. An example, small company, 8 employees. They all have their personal phones, but they want to have access to corporate data on their personal phones. If you look at the bottom of the slide, there's a cell phone there, and there's kind of a isolated box right there. So what we can do is we can create a profile of your corporate data, have your OneDrive, your Outlook for your emails and your Teams, put it in a sandbox on the phone. Any information that is in that sandbox cannot be accessed from outside the sandbox. These configurations can be remotely wiped if one employee needs to leave the company in bad terms, example. So we have control over that. We can remotely wipe and remove access to corporate data on computers and on cell phones. In my example, we could simply remove that sandbox from an employee's phone after they leave the company. So no traces, no more access to your data. So basically, yes, that kind of wraps it up. I decided to do an invest to focus on Microsoft 365 because we have more and more of our customers that are in a full cloud configuration. That's where the IT trend is. That's in the direction we're going into full cloud solutions. We have quite a few hybrid solutions also. We have the expertise to secure your Microsoft 365 environment, but not just that, your whole infrastructure. Whether it be traditional servers, we do all of that. Hopefully this was clear, and I'll be available for questions if you have any questions. And I thank you for taking the time to listening to this. Thank you.